guess is if you're not doing this to cause the hardship, it obviously causes all of the attorneys and the defendants. Are you doing this for the YouTube?
There you go.
All right, who's here on one Rios? One Carlos Rios, who's the attorney?
Right here, Your Honor.
All right, I'm gonna ask you the same question that I asked everybody else. Has an acknowledgement of discovery been done, because I don't have it in the court file?
I have signed a few of them at this point,
All right, so has there been any new discovery?
not to my knowledge.
All right, so you can make sure that the acknowledgement of discovery, the state actually has it and the court has it, because it's not in the court file. And Odyssey is doing things on its own. So I'm gonna have y'all come back tomorrow. You're not number one on the docket.
Okay.
There are a couple of cases that are ahead of you, so those cases may end up going for 4 years. We'll just see where we are, okay?
That's correct.
Respectfully, Your Honor, Mr. Rios always appears, always waits all day. This is impacting his employment. We would ask that if we're not likely to be called tomorrow, that we be released. Additionally, I have experts for this trial that we have attempted to bring in, but we never know, and because the case is older now, when we should bring those experts in. So I'm gonna have to approach the court and request additional funds for those experts if we're reset. So I would ask the court either to give us some preference tomorrow for trial, or if we can't do that, to release Mr. Rios so that he can go to work.
All right, be here exactly at 9:30, okay?
Okay, yes.
All right, I'm supposed to be here exactly at 9:30.
You understand? Now, Your Honor, respectfully, every time we come to court, we lose an entire day of work ourselves too. This is not typical of most of the courts in this county.
Oh, yeah, it is very typical.
It's not.
Yes, it is.
You can say that, Judge, but I practice in
And
the
say that.
courts.
And it very is typical, because every attorney that's here has a case that's set for jury trial. And this is what ends up happening. What ends up happening is I will allow people to go to civil cases to be out of county, and then their client is sitting here waiting for them. And for some reason, that's the court's fault. That's not the court's fault when attorneys are not showing up at 9 or whatever, and then they stroll in at 9:30 or 9:45. So what I'm telling you all, 9:30, see y'all at 9:30. Thank you. Coordinator will give you a reset form.
Understood. Your
All
Honor,
right,
I'm
thank
trying to make
you.
a record. I don't see the court reporter typing.
What?
Okay, so we only take a record in this court when the judge tells you to? The case was called.
No, the case wasn't called. When I call the case, I call it by the style of the case.
Okay.
All right? All right, so I'll see y'all at 9:30.
Judge, I have to ask you, is this a tactic on the court's part to attempt to wear out the defendant so they can't access their right to trial?
Oh. I find that very inappropriate to say when there is no proof and people are just throwing things out. Now, what I can tell you, and I'm sure your client is aware, sometimes when we end up coming to court, we come to court because there are discovery issues. Sometimes when you're in court, you are in court because your attorney is late. And when I say late, I mean that when a case is scheduled in this court and it's scheduled for 9 a.m. and attorneys go to different courts because they want to go to different courts first, it is not the court's fault that you're sitting here for 12 o'clock or 1:30 or coming back over break. Number one, I have a lunch break. And there was a point in time where I would not take a lunch break. And the reason why I wouldn't take a lunch break is because I said, you know what?
Make a record?
I've been a defense attorney. And when I was a defense attorney, what I would always do, I'm like, I have to be in like 5 courts. It would be nice if they could stagger their docket. And so sometimes I would be here, we wouldn't have a lunch break, and I would be here till 3 o'clock. And then you know what I discovered? When I would say that I'm going to be here till 3 o'clock, I'm working through lunch, other attorneys, you know what they would end up doing? Then they wouldn't show up in the morning. They would just show up at 1:30 or whatever, because they're like, oh, the judge is going to stay there. So I stopped doing that because I need a lunch break. And that's what happens.
So then my other question, I guess, is if you're not doing this to cause the hardship, it obviously causes all of the attorneys and the defendants. Are you doing this for the YouTube? Because we don't have a record, right? Except for the YouTube.
Yes, here's the thing. you're to be back tomorrow at 9:30. You
Yes.
understand?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. And once you sign the reset form, you'll be here tomorrow. If somebody goes before you, somebody goes before you. Your counsel is well aware, or should be well aware, if he's been practicing in Bear County,
For almost
that
20
there
years.
are a lot of cases that are on the docket for jury trial. So for example, I had approximately 40 cases down for jury trial today. And what ends up happening, sometimes people who are in custody take precedent because their cases are
I'm
older than
asking for a
yours.
record, by the way.
You understand? Because they're older than yours. So that's what happens. So then what
Rulings
ends
are
up
being made,
happening,
there should be a record, right?
excuse me, stop interrupting me.
Well, we're not on the record,
Stop interrupting me.
right? I mean, we're not in
Stop
court. if there's no record.
interrupting me.
Sir, here's your reset form at 9:30.
So what ends up happening, sir, is that people who are in custody, sometimes their cases take precedent. And the reason why it takes precedent is because their cases are older and because the jail is overcrowded. Now, as you may or may not be aware, I call the docket all the time at 9 a.m. And sometimes when I call the docket at 9 a.m., defense attorneys are not here. Your attorney knows when he has not been here at 9 a.m. And then you have to wait. And you
Judge,
need
you're
to
aware
be
that every
here.
court starts at 9.
And you need to
I
be
have other
here.
cases.
And you
right?
need to be here at 9. So when your attorney is somewhere at another court, you know what ends up happening? Your attorney has made the choice to have you sit here and go to another court before
Well,
coming
that's not
here.
exactly true,
You
because all of
understand?
those courts got
All right,
business
good luck to
accomplished.
you.
All
Thank
of us
you.
got
Thank you,
recalled
sir.
today,
Thank you,
right,
sir.
Judge? So I mean, what did we accomplish?
Have a nice
today?
afternoon, sir.
I
Sir,
mean, that's the reason I don't come to your court at 9, because I know in another court,
Sir,
something's
here's your
gonna actually
reset.
occur.
sir,
And their courts have exactly the same
Sir.
jurisdiction.
right this way, sir.
Yes. All right, thank you. Hi.